Travis Rylan didn't think he lunged. The sound of screeching tires tore through the air as he shoved the woman out of the path of the speeding black SUV, the impact slamming into his side and sending him rolling across the pavement. Everything went white-hot, then black. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on the sidewalk, pain radiating from his ribs and a blur of chestnut hair hovered over him. "Oh my God, are you okay?" the woman asked, her voice shaking. Travis blinked, trying to clear the haze. Did I get hit?" he groaned. She laughed, a breathless, panicked sound. "Yeah, but you saved me. You pushed me out of the way." He sat up slowly, wincing. "You all right? I'm fine," she said, kneeling beside him. "You're the one who nearly got killed." He looked at her properly for the first time, flushed cheeks, wide hazel eyes, a silk blouse now streaked with dirt. She looked expensive, like she didn't belong anywhere near this part of the city. "I couldn't let you get hit," Travis said simply, clutching his side. "I've got a kid, I'd want someone to do the same for her." That was when her eyes softened. "You have a daughter?" "Yeah," he said, trying to stand. "Penelope, she's 6. I was just running to the corner store to grab milk before I pick her up from school." "Wait, don't move too fast," the woman said, standing with him and brushing her hands on her skirt. "I'm Danae Thatcher." Travis gave her a nod. Travis Rylan. She watched him stumble slightly, then made a decision. "You need to get checked out. Come with me." "I really don't have time. I'm not taking no for an answer," Danae said, already signaling to a sleek black car that had pulled up to the curb. The driver jumped out. "Miss Thatcher, are you all right?" "I'm fine. He's coming with us," she told him, then turned back to Travis. "Please, just let me make sure you're okay, for your daughter's sake." The name Thatcher clicked in his brain. He'd heard it somewhere on the news, maybe, but he couldn't place it. Travis hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but I have to pick Penelope up in an hour." "I'll have someone get her from school," Danae said without blinking. He froze. No strangers. I'll go with you, but after that I pick her up myself." She raised her eyebrows. "Okay. That's fair." Inside the car, he noticed how clean everything was. Leather seats, silent engine, tinted windows. The air even smelled like citrus. "You don't live around here, do you?" he asked, glancing at her. Danae laughed. "Not exactly." He didn't press further. He didn't have time to care who she was. He was more focused on the sharp pain in his ribs and getting back to Penelope. They pulled into a private clinic, not a hospital, and he was ushered into an exam room so fast it made his head spin. "Do you own this place?" he muttered. Danae just smiled slightly. "Something like that." The doctor confirmed cracked ribs and a mild concussion, but nothing life-threatening. "You need rest," the doctor said, "and no heavy lifting." "What about my construction job?" Travis asked, already dreading the answer. "Not for at least 3 weeks," Travis cursed under his breath. "I can't afford that," Danae stepped in. "I'll cover your bills while you recover." He stared at her. "Excuse me, you saved my life. Let me help you." "I didn't do it for money." "I know that," she said. "Which is why I want to help. Please, let me do this." He looked at her again, really looked. There was something in her eyes, guilt, gratitude, something deeper. "I don't like handouts." Then think of it as repayment, and maybe, she hesitated, maybe dinner, just to say thank you. "If that's okay," Travis blinked. "You're asking me out. I'm inviting you to dinner, low pressure." He ran a hand through his messy brown hair. "You don't know me," Danae smiled. "I know enough. You threw yourself in front of a car for a stranger. That tells me more than any dating app ever could." He laughed, an actual laugh, which he hadn't done in weeks. "Fine," he said, "but just dinner, and I'm still picking up Penelope." "Obviously," she said, grinning. They left the clinic and headed to Penelope's school, where his bright-eyed daughter raced into his arms. "Daddy," she squealed. "Why are you holding your side?" "I got bumped by a car," he said, kissing her forehead. "But I'm okay." Danae knelt down beside her. "Hi, Penelope." "I'm Danae." Penelope blinked. "Are you a doctor?" "No, just a friend." Penelope leaned into her dad. "She's really pretty," Travis chuckled. "Yeah, she is." Danae smiled at both of them, and something in her chest shifted. She wasn't used to this normalcy, warmth. She wasn't sure what she was doing, but she knew one thing: she wanted to see him again. That night, she sat in her penthouse, staring out over the city skyline, her phone untouched beside her. She hadn't told him who she was. Not really. Not that her family owned half the real estate in the city, or that she was worth over $30 million. Not that she'd never had someone look at her the way he did, like she was just another person, not a headline. She wanted to keep it that way, just for a little while longer. Down in his small apartment, Travis tucked Penelope into bed and stared at the slip of paper Danae had written her number on. He didn't know what the hell he'd just gotten into, but he knew one thing: he wanted to see her again. Travis didn't recognize the name of the restaurant until they pulled up to it. He glanced out the car window at the understated glass exterior and the valet in a tuxedo. "You sure this is the place?" Danae adjusted the strap on her clutch. "Unless you'd rather grab a sandwich at the gas station down the block. I was expecting something with, I don't know, a menu taped to the window." "You saved my life," she said, stepping out as the valet opened her door. "The least I can do is feed you properly." Travis climbed out slowly, ribs still sore, and followed her inside. The maitre d' greeted her by name and led them to a corner table already set with candles and folded napkins shaped like orchids. Travis shifted in his seat, tugging at the collar of the only clean button-down he owned. Across the table, Danae looked completely at ease, her hair twisted up, a silk scarf at her throat like she belonged in a magazine. He cleared his throat. "How do you know the guy at the front?" She poured water into his glass. "My family owns the building, that tract. What else do they own?" She traced the edge of her napkin. "Enough that I usually don't get asked that question." "Well," he said, setting down the heavy silver fork, "I'm not used to places where they butter the bread for you." Danae leaned forward slightly. "What are you used to?" he considered. "Early mornings, school drop-offs. Clients who pretend they'll pay you and then disappear." She didn't laugh. She didn't look away either. "Do you work alone?" "Me and two guys I trust. We fix up kitchens, pour foundations, small stuff." "What about Penelope's mom?" His jaw tensed before he answered. "Walked out when she was 2. Said she didn't want to be stuck in one place. Haven't heard from her since." Danae didn't offer pity. She just nodded once. "That must have been hard." "Hard doesn't matter. Kid needed raising." The waiter appeared and Danae ordered without looking at the menu. Travis ordered the only thing he recognized and hoped it didn't come with a flower petal on top. Once they were alone again, she rested her chin on her hand. "You're not what I expected." "What were you expecting?" "A guy who'd ask for a photo and post about it later." "I don't use social media." "Exactly." Travis studied her. "So what do you do when you're not stepping into traffic?" Danae hesitated. "I handle real estate investments." "Acquisitions, mostly." "Sounds like you spend a lot of time in meetings." "Too much." "Ever get bored of it?" "Every day." Their food arrived, his plate full of something that looked like steak but tasted better than any he'd ever had. Hers was some kind of seafood arranged like art. He was halfway through his when she set her fork down and leaned back. "I spent most of my life being told what I should want. College, career, the right kind of fiancé. I never stopped to ask if I actually wanted any of it." "You got a fiancé?" "Had." "He wanted a merger, not a marriage." Travis raised an eyebrow. "You walked away." "I refused to be someone's accessory." "Good," he said. "You don't seem like the type who'd sit still and smile for the cameras." She tilted her head. "You seem like the type who doesn't care what anyone thinks." "I care what my daughter thinks. That's enough." Danae glanced out the window, then back at him. "What does she want to be?" "Changes every week. Last I heard, it was a vet for unicorns." She laughed, the kind that made a couple at the next table turn their heads. After dinner, they stepped outside and waited for her driver. The night was cool, the city lights reflected in the glass around them. "I had a good time," she said, tucking a loose strand behind her ear, "even with the guy who asked if the butter was free, especially with him." "You're not like the people I usually meet," Travis said. "They talk at you, not to you." "I'm not used to being around someone who doesn't want something from me." They stood close, an accidental brush of hands between them. "I should get home," he said after a moment. "Penelope's staying with my neighbor for a couple hours, but she'll ask a million questions if I'm not back soon." Danae stepped closer. "Can I see you again?" He looked down at her perfect posture, flawless skin, and eyes that didn't flinch when he met them head-on. "Yeah," he said. "You can." The next morning, Travis dropped Penelope off at school and headed to the job site. He wasn't supposed to lift anything, but he needed the paycheck. By midday, he was back home, ice pack on his ribs when a knock came at the door. He opened it to find a delivery man holding a narrow box. "This for you?" Travis took it, frowning. Inside was a sleek black phone and a note, "In case you break your old one again. And I saved my number in it, just in case." He stared at the phone, then at the tiny card. He hadn't told her his phone was cracked. He hadn't told her a lot of things. He hadn't asked about her last name again, either. But he was starting to think he should. Up in her office, Danae stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows while her assistant rattled off numbers and projections. She barely heard them. All she could think about was the man who didn't know who she really was and how much longer she could keep it that way. Danae stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, arms folded against a breeze that skimmed over the city skyline. The sun rested low, casting a copper glow over the concrete and glass. She wasn't looking at the view. Her attention was fixed on the man across from her, Travis, leaning slightly on the railing, his posture casual but his eyes watchful. "You didn't have to come all the way up here," she said, brushing her hair behind one ear. "You invited me," he replied, gaze steady. "Didn't think it was polite to say no." She turned slightly, glancing at the small round table set between them, 2 plates untouched. The food was irrelevant. "This wasn't really about dinner. I wanted to talk," she said, voice quieter than she intended. "You've been avoiding it since the first night." She glanced at him, surprised by the accuracy. "I know you're not just some investor," he added. "I looked up the name Thatcher after I got that phone." Danae didn't move. "And what did you find?" "Articles, photos. One where you were standing next to a guy in a tux and every headline called him the future of finance, my ex." "I figured." He exhaled slowly, stepping away from the railing. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "I didn't want to change how you looked at me." "People usually decide who I am before I say a word." "You mean people like me?" "I mean people who don't know what it's like to be treated like a brand instead of a person." Travis picked up a fork, then set it down again. "I didn't ask you for anything." "I know," she said, almost too quickly. "That's why I didn't want to lose this before it started." He looked at her for several seconds before speaking. "I don't care how much money you have. I care if you're honest." "I've been myself with you," she said. "More than I've been in years." He nodded once, then looked past her, out at the skyline. "Then I'll ask you one thing, anything." "Why me?" She blinked. "What do you mean you could be with anyone? Someone polished, someone who doesn't show up with paint on their boots." "Why me?" Danae stepped closer. "You didn't flinch when I told you the truth. You didn't play a role. You didn't ask me for anything. You looked at me like a person, not a paycheck." Travis didn't respond right away. Then, after a moment, Penelope said something last night. Danae tilted her head. "What did she say?" She asked if you were going to be her second mom. Danae's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" I said I didn't know. Danae's eyes searched his. "And now, I still don't," he said. "I've been on my own a long time. I don't let people in easy." "For her sake." "I don't expect you to," she said, stepping forward until there was only a foot of space between them. "But I want to be someone you can trust, both of you." He studied her. "You're not afraid of all the ugly parts." "No," she said. "I think they're what make you real." The rooftop door creaked open behind them and a uniformed woman appeared. "Miss Thatcher, your father's waiting downstairs." He said, "It's urgent." Danae's face changed instantly. The warmth vanished, replaced by something tight and unreadable. Travis caught it. "Everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. "He doesn't like surprises or people he didn't choose." "Does he know about me?" "I didn't tell him." Travis straightened. "You going to?" "I'll handle it," she said quickly. "He's not someone you need to worry about." "Danae," she met his gaze, "I have a daughter. I don't step into anything unless I know it won't blow up in her face." Danae nodded once. "Give me tonight, I'll talk to him." "Then I'll call you." He hesitated, then said, "All right." She walked him to the elevator, pressing the button without speaking. When the doors opened, he stepped inside, but before they closed, he said, "Don't water it down for him." "I won't," she promised. The elevator closed and she turned on her heel, already bracing herself. Downstairs, Danae's father stood beneath the massive chandelier in the lobby. Crisp charcoal suit, silver tie pin, perfect posture. His irritation hit the air like static. "Why is there a construction worker dining on your rooftop?" he asked the moment she approached. "His name is Travis," she said, keeping her voice even, "and he saved me." I read the report. He threw himself in front of a car. That doesn't make him qualified to enter our lives. Danae crossed her arms. He's not applying for a job. You're acting reckless. You have a role to play, Danae. Public image matters. Legacy matters. I'm not a product, she said, voice rising. You don't get to assign my relationships like you're picking stock. He stepped closer. You think the board will accept you parading around with someone who wears work boots to dinner? I don't care what they accept. You will when you lose your seat. Danae's expression hardened. Then I'll build my own table. He stared at her for a long time. Then quietly, you're making a mistake. She didn't flinch. Maybe, but it's mine to make. That night, Travis stood in his kitchen, rinsing off paint from Penelope's school project. The new phone sat on the counter, screen dark. He hadn't heard from Danae. He didn't know what happened with her father. But something told him it hadn't gone smoothly. Across town, Danae sat in a black car, staring out the window as streetlights passed in flickers. Her hands were folded in her lap, but her mind was with Travis, how he looked at her like she wasn't made of glass, how Penelope had laughed when they built a paper rocket together the week before. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then made the call. I told him, she said when Travis answered. He didn't speak. He didn't take it well, I figured. There was a pause. Do you still want to see me? She asked. Travis looked at Penelope, asleep on the couch under a fleece blanket. Yeah, he said. I do. Danae closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again. Then I'm not going anywhere. Travis adjusted the cuffs of his suit jacket, eyeing his reflection in the hotel lobby's glass elevator. He still didn't feel comfortable in the tailored navy fabric, but Danae had insisted. Not pushed, insisted, with a look that said she believed he belonged anywhere she did. A week had passed since she told her father about them. In that time, he'd seen her every night, sometimes with Penelope, sometimes just the two of them. Each visit was different: an outdoor jazz concert in the park, a quiet dinner in his apartment where they cooked together, a long drive to nowhere with Danae's hand resting over his on the gearshift. But tonight wasn't about them. Not exactly. Tonight was the charity gala. Danae had reluctantly agreed to host a commitment made long before their worlds collided. She'd asked him to come with her. You're sure about this? He'd asked on the phone earlier, watching Penelope color at the kitchen table. I want you there, she'd said. But only if you're ready. He wasn't. Not really. But he was going anyway. When the elevator doors opened, the ballroom stretched before him, crystal chandeliers, a quartet playing something elegant in the corner, servers in white gloves weaving between tables. Danae stood near the center, deep in conversation with a woman in a midnight gown. Her hair was swept back, her gown a pale champagne color that shimmered like moonlight every time she moved. She saw him instantly, her eyes lit, but she didn't rush over. She excused herself with a polite nod, crossed the room at a measured pace, and stopped just short of touching him. You clean up extremely well, she said softly. I feel like I borrowed someone else's life. You didn't, she said, reaching out to adjust his collar. You're exactly who I wanted tonight. He took a breath, glancing around. Everyone here knows who you are, she nodded. And tonight they'll know who you are too. I'm not interested in being a headline. You won't be, she said, but I won't hide you. Travis didn't answer right away. He just offered his arm. Lead the way then. They moved through the room together, Danae introducing him only as Travis. No qualifiers, no explanations. Some looked curious, others indifferent, but none dared question her, not in public. When they reached their table, a man across from them raised an eyebrow. Danae, is this the guy from the story, the one who pulled you out of the street? Travis looked at her. She tilted her head toward the man. This is Malcolm. He runs a fund that thinks it can buy loyalty faster than it can earn it. Charmed, Malcolm said flatly. So, Travis, what's your angle? Danae's expression didn't change, but something in her shoulders stiffened. Travis leaned forward slightly. My angle. I didn't know who she was when I jumped, and I'd do it again, even if she were just some woman crossing the street. Malcolm blinked. Danae turned to Travis. Dance with me. He stood without hesitation, following her toward the open floor as the quartet transitioned into something slower. She settled her hands lightly on his shoulders, and he placed his palms at her waist, careful but steady. You didn't punch him, she said near his ear. Would have felt too much like proving him right. She smiled. I knew bringing you was the right decision. You didn't have to bring me. I wanted to, she said. And I needed them to see that I make my choices. Not my father, not the board, me. He turned her slowly. You're not afraid of how this ends, she met his gaze. I know how it ends. How? With you and Penelope, with something real. Travis paused, the music swelling behind them. You're serious, I've never been more. He didn't answer right away. Then, you sure you're ready for all that comes with me? I've spent years surrounded by people who only care about what I can give them. You've never asked for anything. That's because I'm not looking to be rescued. I know, she said. That's why I trust you. He stopped dancing. Right there in the center of the ballroom, he pulled back just enough to look at her properly. I've never met anyone like you, he said. And I don't want Penelope growing up thinking this kind of love only exists in books. Danae's voice caught. What kind of love? The kind that doesn't care about where you come from, the kind that shows up even when it's hard. She reached up, her hand brushing his cheek. We're building something, I feel it. Before he could respond, a staff member gently approached. Miss Thatcher, there's a call from your father. He says it's urgent. Danae's jaw tightened. Tell him I'm busy. The man hesitated. He's asking about a press tip he received. Something about you and a contractor. Travis stiffened. He's trying to spin it. Danae turned to him. Let him. I don't owe him anything. You sure? I'm sure of you. Later that night, Travis walked her to the car, now parked beneath a canopy of white lights. She turned to him, heels in hand, hair slightly undone. I've been thinking, she said quietly, about what you said. About Penelope. She means everything to me. I know, Danae said. And if she'll have me, I'd like to be part of her life, for real, not just someone who drops by with sparkly markers and books. Travis studied her. She already made you a bracelet. That's basically a contract. Danae laughed softly. Then I guess I'm in. He leaned down, pressed his forehead gently to hers. You're more than in, he whispered. 3 weeks later, Penelope stood at the edge of a sunlit garden, holding a small bouquet of daisies, her front teeth missing and her dress slightly crooked. Travis stood beside Danae, both in simple clothes, hands intertwined, as friends and a few close faces gathered under the wide oak tree in the center of the yard. Not a wedding, not a performance, just a promise to build something lasting, something real. And this time, no one had to jump in front of anything. The soft hum of the espresso machine filled the cozy kitchen as Travis poured 2 cups of coffee. Outside the window, golden light spilled across the small backyard, where Penelope and Danae's cousins' twin boys were chasing each other barefoot through the grass, their laughter echoing through the open screen door. Danae entered, barefoot herself, hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a faded T-shirt of his and a pair of leggings. She leaned against the counter, watching him tuck a napkin under a plate of blueberry muffins. You know you don't have to bribe me with muffins to keep me around, she said. He passed her the coffee. It's not bribery, it's strategy. She took a sip and narrowed her eyes at him. Is that what you're calling your over-the-top breakfast spreads now? I don't want you forgetting how domestic I can be. She grinned, then leaned up and kissed his cheek. You're a menace. Last night you fixed the leaky faucet, today it's muffins. What's next? Alphabetizing the spices. I already did. Danae tilted her head. Seriously, he nodded toward the cabinet. She opened it and blinked. This is deeply unsettling. I like systems. No, you like keeping your hands busy. He met her gaze. It helps. She didn't press further. She didn't need to. She crossed the kitchen and slipped her hand into his, letting them stand there together for a moment while the sun climbed higher, and the scent of coffee and baked blueberries filled the air. Later that afternoon, they drove to the edge of the city, where Danae had arranged a surprise. Travis had tried to pry it out of her all week, but she'd refused. When they pulled into the gated community, he raised an eyebrow. This isn't where your usual listings are. She reached into her bag and pulled out a key on a ribbon. It's not one of mine, he stared. What is this? You'll see. They parked in front of a modest white house with blue shutters and a small front porch. Danae handed the key to Penelope, who looked up at her dad with round eyes. Can I open it? Travis crouched beside her. Knock yourself out, kid. The door creaked open to reveal a sunlit foyer with hardwood floors and a staircase with a carved banister. The scent of fresh paint and lemon wood polish lingered faintly in the air. Danae stepped inside, turning in a slow circle. "It's not flashy," she said, "but it's got everything. 4 bedrooms, big yard, quiet street, and it's close to Penelope's school." Travis didn't speak. His eyes moved over the space slowly, carefully, as if trying to absorb it all at once. Danae turned to him. "I bought it for us," he blinked. "You what?" "I didn't want to drag you into my world anymore, so I found a place that felt like ours from the start. No penthouse, no marble floors, just space for a normal life." Penelope had already run upstairs, her voice echoing from above. "There's a yellow room up here." "It's mine." Travis walked slowly into the kitchen where the sunlight landed on the countertops like honey. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," Danae said quietly, "but I wanted to. I wanted to build something real, not just for me, for all of us." He turned to face her. "You sure you're ready for a life that doesn't come with a staff and a skyline view?" "I'm ready for mornings with burnt toast and bedtime stories. I'm ready for laundry piles and grocery runs." "I'm ready for you." He crossed the space between them and kissed her without hesitation, his hands cupping her face like she was something breakable and vital all at once. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you. I love you too," she whispered. 1 month later, the house buzzed with soft music and the rustle of guests arriving. The backyard had been strung with lights, a long wooden table placed beneath the shade of the maple. Friends, neighbors, and even a few of Danae's former colleagues had come to celebrate what Danae jokingly called their unofficial merger. Penelope wore a flower crown and served lemonade with the seriousness of a seasoned hostess. Travis stood at the grill, sleeves rolled up, laughing with the neighbor who'd helped him install the new fence. Danae watched from the porch, her heart full in a way that made it hard to breathe. A woman approached her, someone Danae recognized from a former board meeting. She wore a linen blouse and held a champagne flute like it was armor. "I didn't think I'd see you again after you walked away from the foundation," she said. Danae smiled, not politely but genuinely. "Walking away was the best thing I ever did." The woman glanced around. "You seem happy." "I am." After the woman left, Travis came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You okay?" "I'm perfect." He kissed the top of her head. "You sure you're not bored without the jet setting?" "I don't want a jet," she said. "I want this. I want us." They stood there as the sun dipped low behind the trees, the air warm and filled with the sound of people they cared about. Penelope squealed as Travis chased her with a water balloon, and Danae laughed so hard she had to sit down on the porch steps. She looked around at everything they had built, not handed over, not gifted, built. Together, nothing was missing, not even a little.